What's up? So, yeah, I wanted to talk about journaling today. Journaling is something I do almost every day to help manage my mental health and stuff. If you clicked on this video, you probably journal too, or you're interested in it. And chances are you've used some of these journal apps that are out there. Using an app or using your computer makes journaling easy, just from the fact of I can type a lot faster than I can write by hand, as well as being able to easily store your entries and look back at them and search and stuff easily. But I don't use journal apps anymore. Now I use some very simple Bash and Python scripts to journal directly on my computer in Markdown files. So you see if I run the script, it gives me a little menu and click 2 for daily entry. And then it just gives me some prompts like how much I slept last night, and I try and practice mindful eating. So I like to reflect on how I ate and say ate well. And then it opens up a text editor for filling in my journal entry. I had actually started directly journaling on my computer a few years ago, and then ended up going back to journal apps. Wrote this little blog post about it. ChatGPT had come out fairly recently at this point. Used it to create this my own little journal app. And I do remember using that for a while, but I ended up um, stopping, mostly because of the problem of access. I just would, forget to do it before I went to work or something like that, and then I wouldn't have access to my local computer. In the past with Notion, I had entered journal entries like on my phone, you know, sitting on the toilet or whatever. Uh, and so I went back ultimately to the apps, to Notion, because it was more convenient. And, I had like a very simple template where I talk about, what happened, what I'm grateful for, intentions, mood, etc. I don't think I use this mood one at all. And then, I would do weekly summaries based on those entries. But then I was using ChatGPT more. This is really embarrassing to talk about. Don't judge me yet, though. Hear me out. I know some of y'all have done this too. I started using ChatGPT for journaling. But yeah, so this is what I would do is like I would give it a journal entry, just type something up, and then it would respond, um, usually super long like this, and then I would type in a new entry like it's Thursday, slept well, snacked too much yesterday, work is a little stressful but fine. Obviously, I would type more than that, but just for the purpose of this, just to show you. Yeah, there were a handful of times where the response that it did genuinely did help me think about something in a new way or was helpful. The other perk I saw about it was like for the weekly reviews, I would just chat each day in the same session, and then I would say like, could you summarize this week? And then it would, automatically put everything together. But the bad parts about using ChatGPT were, one, when I looked back at these, like looking back preparing for this video, looking at like past weekly summaries I had, it's just it's difficult to actually remember the feeling of what was going on at the time because it's in ChatGPT's words. It's like, it'd use BS sort of language like, oh, you were really grounded this week, or like, this week had a quiet steadiness to it, or, stuff like that. That doesn't sound like me, though. So, like, if it doesn't sound like you, it really is harder to put yourself back into where you were. But the bigger problem with it, and this extends to all journal apps, I think, which I did not realize until I started journaling privately again on my computer, was that you don't realize how much you self censor when you are writing on these journal apps. At least for me, I always had in the back of my mind that, I was sort of being surveilled by these apps, or that they were using my data in ways that I wasn't entirely sure. So I, wouldn't share like private stuff. Like I wouldn't really write about my family at all. Um, which isn't to say I didn't slip like every now and then, but in general, I wouldn't try and like, name people or talk about like work or anything that had to really do with like emotions, which is the whole point of journaling. But yeah, like I said, I didn't really realize this until I started journaling privately. And the reason I made the switch, was I was really sick over the summer and just ended up watching a bunch of movies. Some of them like The Great Hack, which is a good movie about Cambridge Analytica, but just watching a bunch of stuff that was making me think about privacy. And yeah, and then I was also just sort of exploring alternatives, and I discovered this blog, Plain Text Productivity, and uh, the author of this blog was just making the case for plain text just being really simple and no BS, easy for you to control, um, and that really appealed to me. But yeah, so what I ended up doing, I just made a very simple bash script. I used Claude, but it's relatively easy to write a simple script that just loads a template in Markdown or whatever syntax you want to use. And then I just used that, and you don't even need a script. You could just create plain text files on your own and then just write something. And I think you will be surprised the difference in what you write about when you know that it's private and protected and you're not being surveilled. I really wish that I had started that sooner. My dad passed away almost a year ago. It'll be a year ago tomorrow, actually. Uh, but when I look back at these journal entries that I made with Notion or I made with ChatGPT last year, I don't really talk about it because I did not want to share those really tough feelings on a third party app. But now it's hard for me to go back and really think about what I was feeling, which I would really like to be able to do, to go back and see what I was going through at the time. So I've been doing this now for a few months. I started in August of last year, and I've used Claude Code to basically just keep iterating on it and keep making improvements. I track my sleep and my eating, like I mentioned. I have a separate weekly planning script where I come up with some like free time focuses for the week that will show. In here, it's not showing because this is just like a demo that I'm doing. Then I do the main journal entry, and then after I finish writing, summarize the journal entry in a few bullet points that my weekly review script shows all of those at the end of the week. The point with this video isn't that you need to build your own system like I have, but the main takeaway that I'm hoping if you're watching this you'll think about is questioning how much you're self censoring when you're using a journal app, even if you've convinced yourself that it's secure and that they're not doing anything nefarious with your data. Even with all of that, just try writing on your own computer and see what comes out. And yeah, the whole convenience problem that I talked about that made me go back to Notion originally. I've basically just become more disciplined about writing in the morning, and I also don't care as much if I miss a day. So I do think being flexible is another important thing to consider when you're journaling. I hope I've inspired you to try journaling privately and getting off any app that you're on. Computers are inherently powerful on their own, and we don't need to rely on platforms or apps for them to get a benefit out of them. All right, if you like this, give me that like. I'll see you later.